Professor Hartman here. Today we're going to go into the differences of these three domains. When we start to identify different types of organisms, we have to categorize these organisms by their physical and structural and different chemical mechanisms that where these organisms live. And we have to figure out, when we try to classify different organisms, how to break them down into different groups. So we start with the biggest domain, and we basically begin our identification of the differences by trying to identify what type of a cell the organism is made up of. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to show you just some pictures, some diagrams of the three different domains. And these are the largest groups of all living things. So you can do this on your own if you just enter a Google search like I did, and it will bring up various, for instance, the first domain is the Archaebacteria. This domain consists of organisms that are prokaryotic cells, meaning they are the most basic cell. They consist of a cell wall, okay, and some DNA, and all of them, don't look alike, but they are very basic. Some of them will have some organelles other than ribosomes. Some of them may have mitochondria, but these are very basic cells. They are very tiny, and these are prokaryotic cells. But not only are they in the prokaryotic cell type, they are the reason they're called Archaebacteria is because they live in extreme environments. So Archaebacteria are basically bacteria that live in boiling hot springs or frozen ice caps, or areas that are, everything else is like poison gas, but these Archaebacteria will live there. There's no oxygen, and the conditions are very extreme for any living thing. But with new technology and different kinds of equipment that scientists and chemists and physicists and engineers, all of these scientists come together and they develop different techniques and different pieces of equipment that can go down into, say, a thermal vent at the bottom of the ocean, and they can extract some of the materials that are down there, and we can analyze those materials, and we found that there are living things in places that we thought were void of living things. So the Archaebacteria, once again, are are basically, they are just bacteria that live in extreme environments. Our next group are the eubacteria. Now these are just our normal bacteria, E. coli, staph, strep, some common organisms that you may have heard of. Maybe you even had strep throat or a staph infection. And so these are just the common bacterial prokaryotic organisms. Prokaryotic meaning that they are just very basic, very small. They have their DNA, and they may have some ribosomes in there, and some of them might have some mitochondria, but they all have cell walls. Some of them have these capsules that protect them from external dangers. Some of them have these whip-like structures called flagella, which help them in movement. Some of them have these pili structures, which are tiny structures extending out off the external layer of the bacteria, and basically they aid in attachment to things. So these are all our bacteria in the eubacteria domain, and this group consists of all these prokaryotic organisms. Our next group is the eukaryotes. That's the next domain, and the eukaryote is a very complex cell. Here's a good one. Once again, all I'm doing is I did a Google search, I entered the domain name, and it gives you a wide variety of that type of a cell. This is a good diagram because it really doesn't tell you what the structure is. It gives you numbers, and it wants you to try to identify what that structure is within that cell. So this is just one diagram, but let me go back and get a diagram that's already labeled for you. These are common, and I'm sure you have these in your textbook. I wish I could make it bigger for you, but I'm sure you can look in your textbook. Let's see, full size. Let's try this. Well, that doesn't really do very much. It's the same size here, so we'll just leave it here. This is the most complex cell, the eukaryotic cell in the eukaryotic domain, eukaryote. Notice how we have all the different organelles, and we're going to talk about organelles and when we get into the cell chapter. But to help with the identification of this type of a domain, all of the organisms in this domain have eukaryotic cells, and these cells are very complex. First of all, these cells all have a nucleus, and the nucleus is surrounded by a nuclear membrane. So it basically has a structured nucleus, a membrane-bound nucleus. It has all sorts of other organelles too. It has mitochondria, it has maybe some chloroplast, maybe it has, lysosomes and Golgi and, all sorts of different organelles. These cells are big compared to the other two domains. These are very big compared to those. So, once again, the eukaryote groups would be the animal, the plant, the fungi, and the protist groups. Okay, all of those have eukaryotic cells. So that's the lesson for today, and I'll talk to you next time.